Okay, so this is the Zoom meeting for Physics 231C. You the main purpose of it tonight is just to explain the course to you, show you what you're going to be doing, show you where to find everything. In the future, we'll have a Zoom meeting every week, and the purpose of those will be to give you some hints for some of the homework. But today is a little different since the semester is just starting. I want to go over the things that are in Lon Kappa. So we'll start there. We'll start by going over what's in Lon Kappa. Maybe you've already done this. You log in at this website, lonkappa.msu.edu. So here's what you should see if you log on to the website. You click on this course, and you should see this content.
What else up for?
Counting 202.
Oh, you're in that?
Okay,
I don't even know how this bullshit works.
Wall 1 or ITN.
No, like,
somebody have a question? If not, then just mute your microphone. All right, so you can log on to Lon Kappa. lonkappa.msu.edu. And if you're enrolled in the course, then you can click on the course that you're enrolled in this case, Physics 231C. And this is what you'll see. There's a syllabus, there's some folders, there's some information. Then there are the assignments. So these are the assignments. So let's take a look at the syllabus. So you click on the syllabus, you'll see this. What's in the syllabus? Well, the instructors are Dr. Musov, Professor Stump. Here are some email addresses, office hours, Zoom times, and so on. There's a course description. There are the prerequisites for the course. There's a list of help room hours. The help room is called the Strosacker Center. That's room 1248, Biomedical and Physical Sciences building. And it's available sometimes during the week. And if you have questions about the homework, go in and there'll be teaching assistants at those times who are assigned to this course.
Okay.
And you can talk to those teaching assistants.
It's fine.
There's information about the exams.
All right, I'll let you know.
There's information about the
All
exam.
right.
What?
Physics.
It's fucking.
Somebody have a question? Mute your microphone, please. So there'll be 3 midterm exams. These are the dates. There'll be a final exam. I don't know the date for the final exam yet, but it'll be during final exam week. All of the exams will be done online on Lon Kappa. There's information about the exam, so read over that. If you have an RCPD visa, you should send that to the instructors. Grading information. And then a list of dates and assignments. So I'll come back to that in a minute. Textbooks. I'll come back to that in a minute. So read over the syllabus. Now let's go back to the contents. So click on contents. There's a folder here called optional folder. It has slides and short videos for all the chapters in the textbook. It's optional. I don't think it's very useful, but some students like to use it. So look it over, you click on that. It's for each chapter, there's a folder. You click on the folder, you see things you can look up about. I think it's actually easier to just use the textbook, but some people like to have extra information. So that's the optional folder here. Here's information about the FAQ folder and the hints folder. You're going to need to use those. So you can click on that. It'll tell you where to go. That's in the supplemental content area. So we'll look at the supplemental content in a minute. But there's information about the FAQ folder and the hints folder. There's a list of, information about the 2 required textbooks, Essential College Physics, Volume 1, and make sure you get the 2nd edition. Don't get the 1st edition. The 1st edition won't. The 1st edition is very cheap, but it doesn't have the right problems. So don't get the 1st edition, get the 2nd edition. You can get it at the bookstores. They have it at the bookstores in East Lansing. Or you can get Essential College Physics direct from the publisher. I've sent information about that in the emails. There's a secondary textbook called Unifying the Universe. It's available at the bookstores, or you can order it from the publisher. So we'll go back to the contents. So that's the textbooks. There's a entry here called assignments. This gives you all the assignments through February 9th. So there'll be some Zoom meetings, there'll be some chapters. Each chapter has a reading quiz, which is a homework assignment. You do it at home. And it has a problem set, which is another homework assignment. The reading quiz is short. The reading quiz is supposed to take about a half an hour, but do it after you've read the chapter. Then it'll only take about a half an hour. The problem set is much longer. The problem set will take multiple hours. So, do the problems. You'll have a week to work on the problems. Don't try to do them all in one day. Spread it out over several days. The exam 1 will occur February 6th. There'll be a corrections for exam 1. That's an assignment where you can get some bonus points. That'll be due February 9th, a few days after the exam. So this shows you what you have to do in the next month. Now, where are all those assignments? Right here. Here are the assignments. So let's look at the first assignment. It's called Reading Quiz 0. It's due Friday. So here's the reading quiz. You open the folder, there's information to get started. There are a bunch of questions. So it looks like there are, about 9 questions to answer. These will be easy to answer. So this shouldn't take you more than about a half an hour if you've read the chapter. Now, if you haven't read the chapter, you may not be able to answer these questions. Although chapter 1 is just math, it's not really physics. So chapter 1 is just math, and you probably all, most of you are science majors, so you've done enough math, you can probably do these problems. Problem 110 is about units. So these will be easy. Now let's look at problem set 0. So that's the first reading quiz, and that's due Friday. Then there's problem set 0. That's due January 16th. What would that be? Tuesday. January 15th is I pick a holiday. So usually we'll have the problem sets due on Monday. But because January 16th is a holiday, January 15th is a holiday, the problem set will be due for the first problem set, or problem set 0. That'll be due on Tuesday. Here's the problem set. It's quite a bit longer. The problems are more difficult. Some of the problems are taken from the book, so you have to have the book. Some of the problems are just written out. You can just do them. Here's a problem called Saturn. Calculate the density of Saturn. Actually, you're not given the necessary information. So if you're not given the necessary information, you have to look it up. You can look it up online, or you can look it up in the textbook. Probably the easiest way to look things up is to use Google. You know, you need to know the mass of Saturn. So just type into a Google search, what is the mass of Saturn? And get it that way. That'll be probably the quickest. All right, so that's a reading quiz, a problem set, and as you'll see, there's a reading quiz every week. So here's reading quiz 1, reading quiz 2, reading quiz 3. Then there's the exam. There's a problem set each week. The problem sets are generally due on Mondays. The problem set may take you 5 or 6 hours.
Why would you do that?
Was there a question? Did somebody ask a question? Well, if you can either unmute your microphone and speak up a question, or you can put it in the chat box on Zoom. You know, the reading quizzes cover a chapter. So for each week, there's a chapter, a reading quiz that's short, and a problem set that's long. And, you know, don't try to do all the problems the day they're due, because there are too many of them. Split it up into 2 or 3 days. So they'll mostly be due on Monday. Work on them Thursday, Friday, maybe over the weekend. Work on them Monday, but don't try to do them all on Monday. All right, that's the main content. Now, there are also some things in the supplemental content. So click on the supplemental content. Let's see what's there. All right. The hints folder. So there's a hints folder. So let's click on the hints folder. Here are hints for problem set 0. Here are hints for problem set 1. Here are hints for problem set 2. You click on that. Here are hints for problem set 1. For each problem, there's a little hint. So try to do the problems without the hints. But if you are stuck and you can't figure out what to do, peek at the hints. And the hints will get you started working on the problem. Most of the problems just come out of the textbook. I mean, they're at the back of the chapter of the textbook. So if you just look at what section of the textbook they're related to, you'll be able to tell that by seeing where they are in the back of the chapter. You can just review that section if you're not sure about the equation you need to use. They're
I
mostly
have a
math
question.
questions.
I have a question.
Yes?
When you say the textbook, which one do you mean? Because you asked us to buy 2 different textbooks.
The one by Rex and Wolfson, Essential College Physics. Essential College Physics has the problems. Okay, so, you know, I mean, hints, there's the hints. So let's look at hints for problem set 2, for example. Okay, so here are all the problems in problem set 2. You know, and on each problem, here's problem 351. So that's chapter 3 in the book Essential College Physics, problem number 51. There are about 100 problems at the end of each chapter. Now, we're not going to assign 100 problems. We'll assign maybe 10. But anyway, it sort of gives you an idea of what are the equations you need to use, what are the ideas you need to use, and if you try to do the problem without the hints, but if you need a hint, this will give you some idea. All right, so let's see what's also in the supplemental content. There's the FAQ folder. FAQ number 1 is how to contact the instructors. The most important thing there is, if you're going to send email to the instructors, send it to both instructors. So when you send email, always send to both instructors. Here are their email addresses. And put the course number in the subject line and tell what it's about in the subject line. You have to send us your RCPD visa if you have one. How about requests for reopening an assignment? Well, that's FAQ number 2. If you have a question about a homework problem, don't send email. Submit the question on the discussion board. So I should show you how to do that as well. All right, so let's see. Square root of 10's positive power. Here's a problem. What is the square root of 10 to the power 17? Well, try to get it. Here's a little bit of hints. Here's some hints here. If you want to ask a question about that problem, click on post discussion. And you get a place here where you can post a question about the problem. So if you have questions about the problems, don't send email. Put it on the message board, the discussion board. Then everybody can see it. And if somebody answers it, then everybody can see the answer. So then everybody will be able to see the answer to your question. And if you have a question, be sure there'll be a lot of other people who have questions. So you send here, and then there'll be a discussion. So now if you go back to contents, square root of 10's power, well, it doesn't show it, but you'll see a little bubble over here which shows that there was a question. For some reason that didn't get posted here. I don't know why. Send. Oh, I didn't put in a message. All right, so you post a discussion, you give it a subject. What? Okay, how many digits? How many significant figures? Send. Okay, now if you go back, you'll see this little bubble indicates that somebody has asked a question. You click on the bubble, you can find out what the question is. If somebody answers it, if somebody types in the answer, you'll be able to see that answer. And so everyone can kind of help each other by posting questions and by answering questions. And everybody will be able to see the answers. All right, so that's, I guess, everything I wanted to say about Lon Kappa. Oh, if you've never used Lon Kappa before, it'll take you a while to get used to it, but it's not very hard. There's a little bit to learn, but it's not very difficult. I mean, essentially Well, okay, let's try that problem again. Well, you've probably already used Line Kappa. Most students, by the time they're taking this course, have already used Line Kappa, but well, let's take a look. Suppose what's the square root of 10 to the 17? Well, I submit an answer here. The square root of 10 to the 17, the square root of 10 to the 16 would be 10 to the 8th. Square root of 10 is about 3 or 3.1. So as a good guess, I could say, well, it's about 3.1 exponent 8. Well, that's probably pretty close. I can submit that answer. Well, use more significant figures. That's not accurate enough. Well, I don't know, maybe it's 3.15. Well, I made a good guess. It's actually 3.16 times 10 to the 8th. But, you know, use a calculator. I kind of guessed it would be about 3.15. In fact, it's a little closer to 3.16. You don't have to have exactly the right number, but if you give 3 significant figures, that'll usually be close enough. And so now if you go back to the contents, you'll see that that question has been answered. So there's a check mark. If it hasn't been answered, it just says due, and it gives the due date. All right, so let's see. One more thing about the FAQ folder. Request a time extension. I missed the deadline for an assignment. Can I get the assignment reopened or a time extension? You know, sometimes people get sick or they have to go out of town for some reason and they can't finish the assignment. They want to ask for an extension. So can I get an assignment reopened or ask for an extension? The answer is perhaps. We're not going to reopen reading quizzes. And we're not going to give extended time on the reading quizzes. Those are short, so just do them in the early part of the week. Now, problem sets are different. They take several days, so can they be reopened? Well, if you have a valid reason. And of course, you have to request that the problem set be reopened before the answers are posted. The answers are usually posted the day after they're due. So if you ask for an extension after the answers have already been given, well then no, you can't get an extension. So here's what you have to do to ask for an extension: send email to both instructors, explain why you didn't get it done. It must be a valid reason: illness, injury, family emergency, some event beyond your control, etc. It's not a valid reason to say, I forgot to do the assignment. No, that's not a valid reason. So we won't give extensions for that. It's not a good thing to get extensions because it'll mean you're behind. You have to do extra work to catch up. What if you can't get an extension, but you have a valid excuse? Well, then there's another no, I didn't want to do that. You might be able to get an excused absence. I missed an assignment. Can I be excused? You know, suppose you come down with COVID the day that the homework is due, and so you didn't get to finish the assignment because you had COVID. Can you be excused from that? Well, the answer is perhaps. You have to send a reason and then fill out the excused absence form So that's back again in supplemental content. Download this form, fill out your name, your email, the date, what problem assignment you're asking to be excused from, and your reason for wanting an excused absence. And if you have a valid reason, we can give you an excused absence. So what that means is we won't take that assignment into account when we make up the final grades. Don't ask for excused absences every week, because, you know, the more you ask for, the less likely it is to be approved. And then send this back to the instructors as an attachment to an email. Okay, what else? FAQ number 10. I don't know how to use Lon Kappa. What should I do? Well, click on FAQ number 10. This has information how to use Lon Kappa. You'll catch on very quickly on how to use Lon Kappa if you haven't already done it before. But sometimes you'll get stuck, you'll be doing something wrong. This tells you how to type a number. You know, most of the answers are going to be a number with units. So you have to know, how do you type a number? How do you type the units? Well, here's how you type numbers. And you have to type it just right. You can't type it in an incorrect way. So a correct answer might be 1e minus 4. But e minus 4 is something that Lon Kappa can't interpret, so that wouldn't be a correct answer. Or 1e a parentheses minus 4. That would be something that Lon Kappa doesn't understand. Usually Lon Kappa will tell you if you've used a wrong formatting and tell you to, you know, format the problem correctly. Well, here's how you format numbers. Then there are units. So you'll have to enter a number with a unit. Okay, how do you put in units? Units are things like meters per second squared. Kilogram times meters per second. Hertz, kilometers, degrees. But there are incorrect ways to enter units. So meters divided by second squared, that's meters per second squared. Meters divided by SE2, Lon Kappa doesn't understand that. So that's an incorrect unit. And again, if you type in the wrong unit or just format it wrong, then Lon Kappa will tell you that. And so you can go back and type in the correct unit. Some problems you ask to submit a formula, not a number, but a formula, an equation. And those are more difficult to get right, the formatting. So read this section called formulas to understand how to input formulas. You're going to have a problem where you have to give it an answer in the form of a mathematical expression. You'll undoubtedly get it wrong because you did one of these things wrong. Read through this carefully and do all these things the way it says. All right, anything else in the FAQ? There are a bunch of things in the FAQ, so you just have to read these over. Time extension, excuse absences, request a makeup exam. If you need a makeup exam, you have to send us information. What's the best way to study for an exam? Well, the best way to study for the exam is to study your notes. Well, first thing you have to do is you have to do all the homework. But then a few days before the exam, you want to study for the exam. Do that by studying your notes. So be sure you take notes so you have something to study. How is your grade calculated? Okay, here's the details of how we calculate your grade. So you can calculate your own grade and you can tell how you're doing in the class by calculating your grade. How to ace Physics 231C. This gives you some advice on what you should be doing every week in order to do well in the class. If Lon Kappa says my answer is incorrect, then what? Well, read FAQ number 9. If you type in a wrong answer, Lon Kappa will tell you your answer is wrong. And then you have to try again. Check your calculation. Ask a question on a discussion board. Sometimes Lon Kappa itself is wrong. That shouldn't happen very often, but every so often Lon Kappa has the wrong answer programmed. And so it'll tell you it's wrong when in fact it's right. So put a question on the discussion board if you think there's a bug in Lon Kappa. But the main thing is, what should I do if Lon Kappa says my answer is correct? Go back and check your calculation. Do the calculation over again carefully to make sure that you didn't make a mistake in doing the calculation. All right, well, that's pretty much everything I wanted to say about Lon Kappa. You just have to start using it, and it'll take you a little while to get used to it if you haven't used it before, but you'll get used to it pretty quickly. All right, read the syllabus. Syllabus describes the grading. Each week, there'll be a reading quiz and a problem set. You know about the 2 textbooks. You know about the supplemental content. Okay, so go to Lon Kappa, become familiar with it, and start doing the homework. Now, let's see if there are any questions on the chat. Is this week the only week there are going to be Zoom meetings? No, there'll be a Zoom meeting every week. How do you know which chapters, pages in the text correspond with the units we're on? You'll know when you start looking at the problems in Lon Kappa. You'll know which chapter it corresponds to. Can we expect exams to be similar to problem sets? Yes. The problem sets are usually numerical. Most of the problems are numerical. The exams will be multiple choice, but they'll mostly be a numerical calculation, and you have to pick the number in the multiple choices which agrees with your calculation. Is there a practice exam? Yeah, there are practice exams. Are the Zoom meetings mandatory? Well, only if you want to get a good grade. No, you don't get any points for attending a Zoom meeting. So I guess in that sense, they're not mandatory. But they should be useful. Will the meeting be the same day and time every week? Pretty much, except, yeah, pretty much. All right, so that's all the questions in the chat. Anybody want to ask a question orally? You just unmute your microphone and speak up. All right, so here's a kind of an overview for the fall semester. The first topic is motion. That's chapters 1, 2, and 3. The second topic is force and energy. That's chapters 4, 5, and 6. The third topic is examples. You know, this is going to be general principles on force and energy. Then we'll apply those general principles to various kinds of examples. So that'll be chapters 7, 8, 9, and 10. And the very last part of the course is about atoms in motion. Most of the first part will consider motion in everyday life or general principles. But the last part will be specific to the motion of atoms. This is mainly thermodynamics. as you see, there are 14 chapters. And there are 14 weeks in the semester. So it's going to be one chapter each week. And the thing is, the material is cumulative. You need to understand chapter 4 in order to go on to chapter 5. You need to understand chapter 5 in order to go on to chapter 6. So if you skip a chapter, you won't be prepared for the next chapter and for the later chapters. So if you get COVID and you miss one of the chapters, when you get over COVID, you're going to have to go back and read that chapter. The chapter you missed, because you're going to need that. So we divide the exams into, there's one exam each month or so. So, you can kind of keep up. Each of these topics will take about a month. Why are you taking physics? What's your major? I looked up the majors of all the students in the class. There are about 31 majors taken by different students in the class. So students in the class are majoring in many different topics. The physics department doesn't decide you have to take physics. The university doesn't decide you have to take physics. It's your major department that decides you have to take physics in order to get a bachelor's degree. So why are you taking physics? Well, you have one of these majors, and the department for that major has decided that in order to finish a bachelor's degree with that major, you have to have physics, either one semester or even 2 semesters of physics. So you see, there's a wide variety of topics that require physics. Many of them are science topics. I would say most of them are science topics. So most of the students taking this class are studying some branch of science. So you have the same kind of background as other people. There are 31 majors represented by students enrolled this semester. They include animal science, that's a kind of science. Biomedical laboratory science, that's a kind of science. Fisheries and wildlife, that doesn't really sound like physics, but it's a kind of science. So the fisheries and wildlife professors want their students to know something about physics. Human biology. A lot of these human biology students are planning to go to medical school. Medical schools always require students have had a year of physics. Kinesiology, Lyman-Briggs. There are actually quite a few students in Lyman-Briggs with various different majors in Lyman-Briggs. Here's Lyman-Briggs animal science, biology, human anatomy, nutrition. Well, anyway, those are all science topics, and they all require a year of physics. Neuroscience, packaging. But packaging is a kind of science. Packaging is applied science. It's kind of like engineering. So packaging, well, it's kind of like engineering. All engineering students have to take a year of physics. Now, the physics for engineering students is usually physics with calculus, but Physics 231 doesn't include calculus. So packaging doesn't require calculus level of physics, but it does require this algebra of physics. Many others, zoology, statistics, all kinds of things. So your major should be listed here, unless you added late. It will help you if you form a study group with other students. So we recommend that you study with other students in the class. For example, you could study with other students in your major. Let's take packaging. There are 46 students in this class who are majoring in packaging. Well, you're probably taking some packaging classes with them. Find them and say, would you like to form a study group for the physics class? Because they're going to be taking physics also. And if you can get 4 or 5 students together, you can work on the homework together. You can ask for suggestions on how to do the problems, how to study for the exams, and so on. And if you don't know anybody else in the class, you can go to the help room. I mentioned the help room. There'll be teaching assistants in the help room. There'll be other students in the help room. And so you can go to the help room and meet some other students in the class, and you can form a study group with other students in the help room. And you can go over problems together and make suggestions on how to do them and so on. There's a GroupMe group listed at the d2l.msu.edu, but I won't use that. We don't use d2l.msu.edu. We don't use that D2L site at all. But I did put an announcement in there which gives a GroupMe site, and maybe by communicating with other students in the GroupMe, you can get together. You can find some that, you can find some students that live in your same dorm. If you get 3 or 4 students who all live in the same dorm, they could form a study group. Or just people you may know people who are taking this physics course. Just sort of arrange a time each week where you can get together and go over the problems, look over the problems, try to find any problems you haven't got right. You'll know if you have them right, because Lon Kappa tells you if it's right or not. So you're going to know if your answer is wrong. You're going to know if you need more work on that problem. So form study groups.
I have a quick question about the textbooks.
Yes?
You only mentioned that we have reading and problems from one of the textbooks. What is the other textbook for? How do we use it?
It's for readings and questions. There'll be readings and questions from that textbook. They'll be in the assignments. They'll be in the Lon Kappa problem sets. You'll see them. You'll see the reading assignment, and you'll see problems or questions based on that reading assignment in the Lon Kappa assignment.
So do we buy both the textbooks, or do we just stick to the second one, which you said has all the assignments and the readings?
You'll need to use both.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Take notes when you read the chapter. So let's look at chapter 1. The title of chapter 1 is Measurements in Physics. Read the chapter. It says here 25 pages. Spend about 3 hours reading the chapter. And as you're reading the chapter, keep a notebook handy and write notes where you see something important, especially equations. Most of your notes will be equations. When you see an equation that you're going to need to understand, write down that equation and make a little note about it. Then when you come to the
I have a
exam,
question.
yeah,
How do we know which book to use? Like chapter 1?
chapter 1 in the book by, let's see. Chapter 1 means chapter 1 in Essential College Physics, Volume 1.
Okay, so is that one of the textbooks that we need out of the 2?
Yes?
Do we know which to use?
Okay, how do we know which to use? So,
When in doubt, use Essential College Physics.
okay, thank you.
It'll say if you use the other textbook. If it doesn't
Okay.
say to use the other textbook, then you have to use this textbook.
Perfect, thank you.
It's, you have to read the book. Let's see. Where was I? You have to read each chapter. Each chapter is 25 to 30 pages long. You probably read it in a few hours, read it maybe 3 hours. You don't have to do it all in one sitting. You could spread it out over 3 days, 1 hour each day. Take notes. Take notes because it'll be a lot easier to use those equations that you wrote down in your notebook than to have to search back through the chapter, through all 25 pages in the chapter. So I would say in a chapter 1, or the other chapters are similar in size, I would say spend about 3 hours reading the book and create about 1 page of notes. One sheet, two-sided. 1 page in your notebook. You should have a physics notebook, which you don't use for anything except physics. Keep the notes on those pages, maybe 1 sheet, two-sided for each chapter. Chapter 1 has 5 different sections. A lot of the chapters are like that. It's 1 chapter, maybe 5 or 6 different sections. So read a few sections on Monday, a few sections on Tuesday, finish up reading the chapter on Wednesday, take notes, start doing the homework, the reading quiz, spend about 3 hours reading and taking notes. Now, for each chapter, there are some things you have to learn. This chapter is about measurements. So you're going to have to learn about the units of measurement. There are 3 primary units: length, distance, and time. The primary unit for length is kilograms. In chemistry, they use grams, but in physics, we use kilograms. For distance, the primary unit is meters. For time, the primary unit is seconds. Now, there are many other different kinds of units. I mean, you can measure distance in feet or inches or miles, but the standard unit is meters. Or time could be measured in seconds. It could be measured in hours, days, years. The standard unit is seconds. Now, sometimes you have many seconds or many meters, so you have prefixes. For example, a kilogram, kilo means 1,000, so a kilogram is 10 to the power of 3, 1,000 grams. Now, we don't use grams very much, but sometimes you'll have a homework problem that uses grams. Chemists often use grams. Or this converts from grams to kilograms. How do you convert from kilograms to grams? You multiply by 10 to the minus 3. Or 10 to the 6 meters would be 10 to the 3rd kilometers, would be 1 megameter. And 10 to the minus 6 seconds would be 1 microsecond. So one thing you'll learn in chapter 1 is these standard, SI means standard prefixes. You'll need to know how to convert from one set of units to another. So for example, how do you convert from a mile to meters? Well, 1 mile is 1,609 meters. Or hours to seconds, 1 hour is 3,600 seconds. You can look these numbers up in the book, or you can always do a Google search. If you have to convert from miles to meters, you could do a Google search. Type into Google, how many meters is 1 mile? 1,609. For example, you might say, okay, I'm going down the highway at 60 miles per hour. What's that in standard units? Standard unit for speed is meters per second, because speed is distance over time, and distance is measured in meters, time is measured in seconds. So the standard unit of speed would be meters per second. Okay, you're going 60 miles per hour. How fast is that in meters per second? Well, it's 60 miles is 1,609 meters, divided by 1 hour, that's 3,600 seconds. Get out your calculator and calculate the number. It's 26.8 meters per second. Everybody knows how fast is 60 miles an hour. Most people don't know how fast is 27 meters per second. Well, it's about the same as 60 miles per hour. But anyway, you may have a calculation where you have to convert from one to the other. So that's explained in chapter 1. You've probably done this before if you're a science major. Dimensional analysis, there's a section on how to figure out the dimensionality of different combinations, like speed is distance over time. So the unit of speed,
Speaking of time,
yep,
I was just wondering, how long do these typically last? Sorry, kind of off topic.
how long do what last?
The Zooms,
An hour?
an hour.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry, thank you.
All right, so speed is the unit of speed will be the unit of distance divided by the unit of time, because speed is distance divided by time. So the unit for speed, we might call that V for velocity, is the unit of distance over the unit of time. That'll be meters per second. So when you do a line kappa calculation, you have to give a number and an answer. I mean, you have to give a number and a unit. How do you figure out the unit? Well, it's by this dimensional analysis. And you have to use the correct number of significant figures. Again, most of you are science majors, so you've undoubtedly run into significant figures before. For most line kappa problems, you want to give 3 significant figures. In mathematics, 1.00 is not the same as 1. 1.00 is a real number accurate to 3 significant figures. 1 is an integer, infinitely accurate. They're not the same. So you have to use the correct number of significant figures. All right, so that's how you will study the material in the textbook, and that's where you'll get the knowledge. So what you should be doing now is reading chapter 1, do reading quiz 0, which goes along with chapter 1, do problem set 0, which goes along with chapter 1. Reading quiz 0 is due Friday. And there'll be another Zoom meeting Friday. We won't have it Friday at 7 p.m. We'll have it Friday at 4 p.m. Now, if you can't come to the Zoom meeting, it'll be recorded and put on YouTube. So read about that in the syllabus. So here's a problem which is assigned for next Tuesday, a week from today. So here's a problem from problem set 1. It's actually a problem taken from the book. It's problem number 63 from chapter 1. And you have to do some calculations. Well, I'll go over that on the Zoom meeting Friday. Or here's another problem. It's problem 65 in chapter 1, where you have to answer some questions. I'll go over that on Friday's Zoom meeting. Here's another problem, problem 86. I'll go over that on Friday's meeting. So that's all I have prepared for tonight. Are there any more questions? Let me look on the chat and see if there are any more questions. Are the Zoom meetings mandatory? I already went over that. Will you be posting this video to D2L? No. I'll be posting it to YouTube. Read about the YouTube channel in the syllabus. Every Friday at 4 p.m. Yeah. Not Zoom meetings on Tuesdays, no. Anyone have the YouTube link? I think you can find it in the syllabus. Are the weekly Zooms recorded? Yes, the Zooms are recorded. So if you can't come to the Zoom meeting, then watch the recording. But you'll probably get more out of it if you come to the Zoom meeting. Okay, that's all the questions in the meeting chat. Anybody want to just unmute your microphone and ask a question?
I have 2 questions, Professor.
Yeah.
So, my first question is, I have the Essential College Physics Volume 1, like the second edition in front of me. It
Yeah.
says that the first chapter is only 15 pages, so we don't have to read to page 25, right? Just the first chapter.
Well, let's see. I don't have the book with me right now. Is it only 15 pages? I thought it was 25 pages.
I have the ebook, so that might make a difference, but
Well, it starts, you know, it has some pages. Then it has a chapter summary page. Then it has the chapter problems, which looks like 1, 2, 3, 4 pages of problems. So I don't know where I got the number 25. Maybe it's 15 pages of text plus summary page plus 4 pages of problems. That would add up to 20 pages. You don't have to read all the problems, obviously, but you have to read the text.
right.
So I don't know. Maybe it's not, maybe it's less than 25. But I
Okay, and
think
then
most of the chapters are somewhere between 25 and 30 pages.
okay. And then my second question is, I've already like read and taken notes on the first chapter. I've started to take a crack at the problem sets and stuff, and I was kind of finding difficulty completing those problem sets even when referring to my notes. I just kind of want to know, like, I know that like our textbook is supposed to be the best resource that we reference when completing these problems, but do you have anything else that could
Yeah, there are the
help
notes.
us?
There are the
notes.
hints.
The hints?
The hints in the supplemental content.
Okay,
So in supplemental content, there's a page of hints for each problem set. Or
Okay.
no, multiple pages of hints for each problem set. So, you know,
Okay.
try to do the problem without the hints. Just
Yeah.
using the information that you have from taking notes. But if you get stuck on a problem and you don't know how to proceed, take a look at the hints.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? All right, well, we've used up pretty much most of an hour. The Zoom meetings will usually be a little less than an hour. They'll probably be more like 45 minutes. But the next one is Friday. So again, if you haven't been able to do all the problems, you should come to the Zoom meeting Friday. I'll go over some hints for some of the more difficult problems. I don't see anything more in the meeting chat. So I guess I'll stop the recording now.